All right, we are now live.
Excellent.
Awesome. So I guess we could always start with introductions. Oop. We could start with introductions. I'm
Okay.
Cecilia. You're on my channel right now. At That Disney Chick.
Excellent. And I am Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. And let me just first say to Cecilia, thank you for doing this. The anticipation has been killing me for this specific conversation for years. It was all just a matter of time until I actually found a person to do this conversation with. I'm extremely excited.
I'm excited too. This is going to be like really awesome and interesting. I haven't talked to a lot of people about like this era of Disney or anything like that. So I'm curious to see how our discussion goes.
As am I. As am I. As somebody who has been making Disney a very significant part of my YouTube channel because I review Disney classics, Pixar films, and even Studio Ghibli because Disney does pretty much owns most of that too. So, I mean,
True.
what does Disney not own these days? I basically call every Disney property that they acquire another child of Thanos at this point in time. But no, it's just that seeing a lot of these classic films and a lot of the ones from what we're talking about today, I refer to it as the lost decade. As an adult, it's really interesting to see such innovative ideas that Disney was putting into their canon classics.
Mhm.
And I really think that while they may not be as memorable as some of the most well known with some of the most well known themes, I still feel that there is so much relevancy, and I think that there needs to be more people that actually talk about them so more people will watch them.
Yeah, that's true. This era is very, I guess, special to me because the this era came out when I was a kid. So the first movie Fantasia came out when I was 1, and the last movie Bolt came out when I was 9. So these are the movies that I basically grew up on, the movies that were coming out that I grew up on, and I got the DVDs and VHS tapes when they came out. So it's very special to me, this era.
I don't blame you. I mean, that's what it is for every fan of Disney because people always remember those great films that they watched from their childhood. I mean, I pretty much grew up during the Disney Renaissance. And, as people looking back at those movies, people always say to me, like, I'm probably one of the luckiest kids to have grown up because, you had The Little Mermaid, you had The Lion King, you had Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. I mean, how could you lose? But it's kind of funny because the movies that we're going to discuss today, I find myself personally going more towards those and talking about those a lot more than the ones that I grew up with. Now, don't get me wrong, they're great movies. I mean, they pretty much are the reason why Disney is what they are today.
True.
But you have to always give any film studio credit when they try to attempt something out of the box or break the trends that they had that were already working for them.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
It's very interesting to see the trends of like how I like a lot of people kind of forget about this era because of how different they were. None of the movies really felt extremely like Disney. They were trying a whole lot. Like basically every movie tried something different that Disney had never done before,
Mhm.
or at least had never done in like their like not outside of like Pixar and Disney Studios and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Pixar because I feel that's one of the main reasons why these films got lost. And it was just because of the fact that Pixar was the toast of the town in Disney's world when the 2000s rolled around, because here was this beautiful new animation style, which pretty much is the standard of animation today. And I'll just throw out a personal feeling. I still have such a soft spot for 2D animation. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all about things that are new and exciting, and of course also things like CGI, which, believe it or not, when it comes to time management and even money, they're actually a little bit cheaper these days than what 2D animation used to be. But I
Mhm.
just feel that when it comes to 2D animation, there's such an additional labor of love. But Pixar managed to give us both of those, especially in the early 2000s.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, I feel like now movies today, or at least animation movies, they're pretty much all, or coming from the West, are all pretty much CG. Not also when you look at like Japan, basically like most anime is all 2D animation, even
Mm-hmm.
today. Well, just like a small percentage, or they have CGI elements. So it's interesting to like go back and see the start of them doing CG, because Pixar was around this time, but they also they had Chicken Little, which we'll talk about, which was their first CG film that wasn't Pixar.
That's correct. I mean, there is. Well, it's so funny that you said that because there was the other forgotten CGI film in that mix, which is Dinosaur, which nobody
Oh
talks
yeah,
about. But Dinosaur is such a more interesting story, and
yeah.
it's so funny because when I was writing down all the movies, because I want to make sure, obviously you as well, that we tackle each and every one of them, I actually forgot to write down Dinosaur. I'm like, it just shows you that some of these movies you don't even think about them. But yeah, so you mentioned Fantasia 2000, and I will let you know that Fantasia is actually my favorite Disney classic.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why is because not only do I love film, especially animation, I love it, but I'm also such a huge fan of music. And classical music is actually something that I do enjoy, whether it's from a film soundtrack or even some of the most well-knowns from the classical composers of the 14, 15, and 1600s. But I appreciate now, and maybe that's just because of the fact that music is so relevant to me as an art form, that the mixture of animation and music is beautiful. So knowing that we were going to get a sequel to my favorite Disney movie, I was excited, especially to see what pieces they were going to use, and even more how we were going to see them alongside how far Disney animation had come since 1940.
Yeah, I remember watching. I think I watched the original first, and I really liked the original. And I personally think I like the original more than 2000. I don't know why. I just like the animation and the choice of music they chose in the first one. Um, but yeah, I have an appreciation for classical music. It's like I'm more picky with it. It's like it depends on the I like more, I guess, unique classical music, if that makes sense. Like
I know
Beethoven's
that.
not my huge favorite, but like those kind of things. Or I like watching live performances, but if I can't sit and listen to a classical CD or something like that.
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, if I hear a famous piece like Mozart's Requiem, like I'll know the song. But if I want to listen to something classical that I'll listen to the whole way through, I'll listen to a Star Wars soundtrack. You know, it's John Williams, it's classical music either way. But
Mhm.
I can see where people would take Fantasia over its sequel, because I will fall into that category too. And I think it's because of the overall formula of the second film that has its pitfalls.
Mhm.
And it's mostly, at least for me, the fact that each segment was introduced by a famous face. In the first Fantasia, you had a singular narrator, and you also didn't actually see the narrator. You saw the back of Leopold Stokowski, and you saw the shadows and the silhouettes of the instruments. You didn't get that with Fantasia. I mean, with Fantasia 2000. I think that was one of the first and maybe only times where I didn't laugh at a Steve Martin joke.
Oh yeah, it just it was an interesting film.
Yeah, it was, but also I think that the animation segments were hit or miss. I
Mhm.
still love Rhapsody in Blue.
Oh yeah,
That
definitely.
is beautiful, especially because of the fact that it's animated in the style of sketch artistry of Hirschfeld. Because I love Hirschfeld cartoon characters in the papers. My favorite thing is I would always see a copy of one of his celebrities that he drew in the New York Times, and the goal of my objective was to find his daughter's name, Nina, in each drawing. That's what he does in every single one. I never actually found it in the cartoon, but I'm just letting you know I'm still looking for it. I really,
Yeah,
really am.
I remember hearing about all that, and I couldn't find it in the cartoon either. But also, like, I don't know if I was paying so much attention to it, so like, I might
Yeah.
have to go like specifically rewatch that part and like frame by frame be like, where is she?
Yeah, exactly. But when you take a look at things like, Carnival of Animals, and you have the flamingo with the yo-yo, it just doesn't sit right with me, and it's also very short. That's one of the few
Yeah,
things that
that's
the
true.
original Fantasia did not have. It did not have short songs, and I'm not really the biggest fan of the pomp and circumstance segment. I mean, it is great to see Donald and Daisy in
Hmm.
the Fantasia because they were very deserving of it. But I
Yeah.
just didn't really care much for the whole Noah's Ark biblical theme. And between you and me, I really didn't care about the fact that they gave us the Sorcerer's Apprentice again. I didn't think the
Yeah,
movie. I wish they would have given me something different.
it's true. Like, I feel like it was done so well the first time that it didn't really need to be done again. I feel like that was just kind of, I guess, a selling point because a lot of people love The Sorcerer's Apprentice so much. They're kind of like, hey, you want to see it again? Well, here's this movie, kind of thing. But like, kind of like like, if you think about it, like in 2000s, they're like, well, why would I go watch the sequel when the first one was good and it's just going to be similar? They're like, well, we have this Sorcerer's Apprentice again. I think it's also in the promotional material, I believe. I have to check.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean that's
yeah, it
pretty
definitely
much
is.
how are you going to fill people? How are you going to fill the seats? You got to show them the familiar Sorcerer Mickey. That's what you
Yeah.
got to do. But I also did love the Firebird suite, the one at the
Oh
very
yeah.
end. That one's absolutely beautiful, and also the one with the whales is also beautiful. But I just wasn't really a big fan of the song choice. But
Yeah.
one of the few things that I did appreciate, and unfortunately, it's not on the DVD. I have the DVD, not the Blu-ray.
Hmm.
There was a segment that Walt Disney did create with actually one of my personal favorite artists of all time, actual artists, and that is Salvador Dali. And that was the segment Destino. And
Oh
that is
yeah.
actually on the Blu-ray, and you can also watch it for free on YouTube. But if they would have kept that in the movie and maybe put that in there instead of the Sorcerer's Apprentice, I feel that it would have been just as good, if not better, than the original Fantasia.
Oh, definitely. I remember I had to. I think it was for one of my film classes, it was like incorporated with art. We actually had to analyze that one section, and it was so fun to do it. And I wish they kept it in the original because I went back to rewatch it, and I was like, where is it? Because I forgot that I thought at first that it was, and I was just watching a version on YouTube, but it's not. And I remember staying there like, well, that was kind of lame.
Yeah, it's a pity when it's like when you're going to see a movie and you're expecting your favorite part of the trailer to be in the movie and it's not there.
Exactly. And you're like, well, then where was that awesome scene? Like, kind of thing. Or it was just like, it was just a letdown. And I was like, oh,
Yeah, but for what it's worth, I still appreciate the fact that the Disney studio did want to try and capture some of that magic again, because I also do feel that that specific theme is a very mind enriching thing, because a lot of people say, especially when it comes to young kids, like, let a child sit in front of a TV while listening to classical music and it will stimulate the brain in very positive ways. And to bring something like Fantasia to a whole new generation with the animation style that kids were already familiar seeing thanks to the Disney Renaissance, I think that it could have worked. But I still give Disney tons of props for actually giving us a follow-up to Fantasia, because it was one of Walt Disney's true dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the studio did it at the end was a very nice thing to see. That's just what I
Yeah,
feel about it.
it definitely was. I mean, Fantasia didn't. I mean, it kind of bombed at the box office. It got 90 million. It made $90 million, but the budget was 80 million.
Wow.
So it didn't really make a lot. It didn't do a lot. And about a third of that was foreign, and then the 2/3 was domestic. So I don't know. It kind of. I feel like most of the films in this era bombs in the theater in the box office, but
Yeah, well, that's just because you had to remember all the competition that they had. I
that's
mean,
true. Some years they
as
had really bad
yeah,
competition.
I mean, as far as I can remember, I think one of the other major issues with Fantasia 2000 was the fact that it didn't get into as many theaters as Disney wanted it to. I remembered
Yeah.
really having to search for a theater, because thank God, because I saw Fantasia 2000 in theaters,
Mm.
and I took my sister to go see it with me, and she really, really enjoyed it because she likes the original Fantasia too. But it was the only theater in, I think, a span of maybe 10 miles, maybe even 20 miles that was showing it. Thank goodness it was less than a mile away from where our parents' house was. So we went to go see it on an early Sunday morning, and we really, really were glad that we did. And I think it's just because of the fact that there wasn't too much of a market, which is why I guess they couldn't get the screens that they wanted here in the US.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. It looks like when I was looking it up that it looked like it was like kind of like a, you know how sometimes you see films and they're like, I guess like only at certain theaters for a certain amount of time. It looked
Yes.
like it was one of those kind of movies.
That's what I think it was, because I do remember that, because it actually didn't make theaters until 2000, but it actually was made in 1999,
Hmm.
and its actual premiere was, I remember trying to get tickets for it. Its premiere in New York, where I live, was actually, I think, supposed to be in the first week of December in Carnegie Hall. That would have
Yeah,
been an amazing experience,
that
but
sounds awesome.
yeah, I mean, like, what better place to put it besides Carnegie Hall or Lincoln Center? Like, that's the
That's
best
true.
place to show a Fantasia film.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because when I look at it, it says it premiered December 17th, 1999, but then generally it says the IMAX release was January 1st, and then the theatrical release was June 16th.
Exactly. Yeah, it came out in
So
the
it's like,
summer of 2000. Yeah.
yeah, you're like, so why did it come out 6 months later? That's kind of weird.
I guess that's the reason why it made the money that it did. What can I tell you?
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question.
Hmm.
Dinosaur.
Oh my
Did
god.
you do you remember what was the last time you saw it?
Um, that's a good question. Actually, okay, like last week, I was going through YouTube and I found a YouTube video that said, so Dinosaur existed, and it was a guy reviewing the movie Dinosaur, and I was remembering, I'm like, shoot, when was the last time I watched it? I think the last time I watched it, I was like 5 or something like that. It's been a really long time, and I was
Uh,
watching the video, and I was like, these dinosaurs look so creepy. I mean, I remember when I
no,
was a kid, I thought they were creepy looking. That's probably why I never watched it again.
I only saw that movie in theaters. And that was the first and last time I saw it. I went to see it with a friend of mine from high school. So I remember the promotion for Dinosaur. I
Oh my
don't
gosh.
remember which movie it was, or a couple of movies, but this was I think it was a 10-minute long sneak preview trailer,
Oh my gosh.
just for Disney to showcase this amazing CGI. And don't get me wrong, if there's anything positive that I can say about Dinosaur is it's a massive piece of eye candy. It's gorgeous.
It is really
Absolutely
pretty.
gorgeous.
It's cool because they weaved in like live action footage of
Exactly.
the scenery, and when it goes with the CGI, it actually looks pretty effortless, especially for it came out in 2000, sir. So for coming out at that time, it looks really good.
Absolutely. Especially when you take a look at where Pixar was at that point in time. I mean, Pixar was also starting to show some truly great things in animation because we had just had, wow, we had only, at that point in time, there were only 3 Pixar movies, and the last one was Toy Story 2. But I do specifically remember Al from Al's Toy Barn and seeing his goatee and how real it looked.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Like, wow, that doesn't look like a fake piece of hair on his face. Like it actually looks
And
real, which is
and
crazy.
the cheese dust on his fingers from the cheese puff. So animation, especially in the world of CGI, was definitely going somewhere. But the one thing that I definitely could tell from Dinosaur seeing that promotional trailer, I just said to myself, how much did this movie cost? Because this must be so goddamn expensive.
It's crazy. When I look at it, because I have it pulled up right here, it's not the most expensive out of everything. It's actually, I think, the fifth most expensive. It
Wow.
only cost 127.5 million.
Wow, really? I would never
Yeah,
know
because there's
that.
others. Yeah, there's others that cost like 140, 150 million. So like it's a I think it's fifth if I did my math correct.
Yeah,
Fifth lowest.
and I mean, there's a decent voice cast in this film. I wanted to also try and make sure that we got a lot of bases covered here, so I pulled up IMDb when we go through each movie. But there are some
Hmm.
very famous faces in here. There's Alfre Woodard, there's Ozzie Davis, there's Max Casella from Doogie Howser, DB Sweeney, and extremely young Hayden Panettiere. So
Oh yeah.
there's Juliana Margulies is here. So there's a cast, but
Yeah.
all I know is that when I saw this movie, and I'm thinking that it's extremely appropriate to mention the specific actor, my inner SNL David Spade came out and said, this was great the first time I saw it when it was called The Land Before Time.
I remember, and I literally I remember seeing the title, and I was like, "Wait, I saw that movie. It was animated." And then I remember seeing a promotional picture of The Land Before Time. I'm like, "Oh wait, wrong movie." Like I legit thought it was The Land Before Time because I remember loving those movies, and so I was like, "Wait a minute, what is this movie?"
Well, the whole thing with The Land Before Time is a whole other vicious animal in Disney's side because Don Bluth, you know, is responsible for some of the better Disney classics from the 1970s. And then he picks himself up and he brings half of Disney animators with him to Universal. And in the 1980s, you have animated films from him that are outgrossing Disney films, which is
That's
scary.
true. That's very true.
I
It's
mean,
just
it's
I
like,
don't
yeah. I mean, it's like when I mean, you and I, based on some of your videos that you had done in the past, you and I agree that The Great Mouse Detective is definitely a great Disney classic.
Oh, definitely.
But how are you going to compare it to An American Tail? Or A Land Before Time? You just can't.
You really can't.
There's something truly special about those two specific movies. But I think what's even scarier is the fact that Don Bluth was like surpassing Disney, and after The Land Before Time, he crashed like a brick.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, he had a couple of gems here and there. Like, I really do like All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Hmm.
And also in 2000, ironically, his last directed film comes out, and that's Titan AE, which is a very cool film.
I've never seen that one.
Oh, I would definitely recommend Titan AE to you, especially since you're a very big fan of Treasure Planet. It reminded me a lot. Treasure Planet reminded me a lot of Titan AE, but they're two very, very different movies. But
Oh, okay.
I think one of the few things that I can definitely say, looking back at a movie like Dinosaur and some of the other movies that Disney has done over the past couple of years, I don't think Disney will ever make a good movie about dinosaurs.
No, especially after Shoot, what was that movie called? It was from Pixar.
The
It was
Good
the dinosaur
Dinosaur.
movie. Good Dinosaur. I remember going to see it in theaters, and I was like, "Well, this is kind of anticlimactic." It
It's
was
oh
very
yeah,
so boring.
it's got some good moments, but overall, it's definitely one of the weakest Disney Pixar movies they have. They just
Like
can't do it.
I remember the beginning and I remember the ending, but if you cannot tell me one thing that happened in the middle of that film, I
Yeah.
pretty sure I fell asleep. I don't remember.
Now, the only thing that I love about that movie the most is the fact that Sam Elliott is the voice of a T-Rex. That's all that I care about because I love
That's
Sam
true.
Elliott.
That was pretty great. I'm not gonna lie.
There's nothing. It's like when I saw that Sam Elliott was going to be in this movie, I was like, oh, please make him a T-Rex. That's the only thing that I can see him as in this movie. And it's like when you see him as this T-Rex cattle rancher, I'm like, yes, that gives me Sam Elliott. Give me him as dinosaur. I like it. No,
I
but
know, like
like,
let's have him be the main character, like, and see him
yeah.
merge it with Home on the Range, and it'll just be.
Oh boy, I'm excited. I'm either excited or terrified about that one to talk about. But
I
yeah,
am. I am
I have to
too.
rewatch. I have to rewatch Dinosaurs soon because I haven't done it for my Out of the Vault segment on my show yet. So
Mm.
it's definitely going to be a very interesting experience. Although one of the few things that we also have to remember, and this is and this was the fun fact that I wanted to bring in, is in the UK, this movie is not a Disney classic.
Is it really?
No, as a matter of fact, I don't even know if you've even seen this one because I haven't. There was a Disney animated film from an independent CGI animation studio that they'd had in 2006, and the movie was called The Wild. It was basically Disney's take on trying to be DreamWorks' Madagascar.
I remember that. Oh my gosh. No, I remember that vividly.
Yeah, so
Oh my gosh.
this movie, The Wild, is classified in the UK as Disney's 46th classic. And in America, The Wild is not a Disney classic, and Dinosaur, I believe, is number 39. So it's
Yeah, I think
weird.
so. That is weird. Also, the weirdest thing out of all of this is that out of all of the movies from the era, Dinosaur made the most in the box office.
Well, that's something I wouldn't be surprised. And like I said, I think it's basically if you didn't see that movie on the biggest screen that you could find, you basically, if anything, you prevented yourself from just an overall amazing movie experience because seeing that movie on the big screen, like I just remember seeing the spectacle and it's gorgeous. But if it's just all about that and nothing underneath it, that just makes a bad movie no matter what it is.
That's true. It made 212 million foreign and then 137 domestic,
Unbelievable.
which is crazy. Yeah.
And nobody remembers it.
Nobody remembers it.
Yeah, we literally almost forgot it right here today on the show.
I think it just lacks rewatchability.
I agree. Considering the fact that I haven't watched it since 2000.
That's true.
I haven't seen that movie in almost 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
And next year, which is most likely going to be when I review it, it will be Dinosaur's 20th anniversary.
That's true.
But anyway, there was another Disney movie that came out later on that year, and it may not have made as much money apparently compared to Dinosaur, but I will definitely say out of the two, it's definitely the better.
Oh, definitely. And it's got such a cult following, especially today.
Yeah. Just in case everybody doesn't know, we're talking about The Emperor's New Groove.
I loved The Emperor's New Groove as a kid. I also had Kronk's New Groove, the sequel, on
Oh,
DVD. I
wow.
still have it on DVD,
Well,
which was in.
that's great. I mean, I rewatched it a couple of years back, and I remember seeing this. This is another movie that I went to go see with my sister. My sister and I, when my sister was in junior high school and going into high school, we used to have like a little brother-sister day and celebrate her finishing up school. We go see a movie, and it was almost always a Disney classic or Disney Pixar. So, of course, we saw The Emperor's New Groove, even though it was in the fall, I think, when it came out. But I just remember laughing so hard at that movie, and seeing it again as an adult, I laughed extremely hard at 50% of the movie, and the rest of it I wasn't so keen on. So basically, if Kronk and Yzma were not on screen, I was snoozing. They are the best part of that movie, as far as I'm
They
concerned.
they are amazing. They're the lines that you could take away from the film, like pull the lever, Kronk. It's just and the wrong lever. It's just it's such a good, it's
Yeah.
such a quotable film. It's so memorable.
And
And they
it's
also had a TV show, which I do remember watching when it came out.
oh, I mean, and the cast.
It was so
At first,
good.
it's such a great choice. I mean, like, I still cannot get over the fact that David Spade was in a Disney movie. It's still something I'm trying to wrap my head around to this very day. Because when you take a look at cast members from Saturday Night Live, even going all the way back to the 1970s, I still can't even think of Saturday Night Live cast members who have actually voiced Disney characters. Like, I know that Will Ferrell hasn't done it, Adam Sandler hasn't done it, Chevy Chase hasn't done it. So I'm like, Dan Aykroyd hasn't done it. So out of all the Saturday Night Live cast members that you could pick, you pick David Spade. But what a wise choice. And to pair him up with John Goodman was such a fun thing to see.
It was so amazing. Like I would watch a live action buddy comedy with them. That would be a crazy. That would be amazing because it would just basically be this, but live
Well, that's
action,
also
and I'd be there
true.
for that.
I mean that's also true. It's like this was the first time that Disney ever tried a buddy comedy. I mean,
Hmm.
there have been Disney classic characters that have been buddy buddy. I mean, like you had Robin Hood and Little John, you had Oliver and the Artful Dodger, but you never had anything like this before. You never
That's
did.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
You never saw like such great chemistry on screen with two characters who you could tell were like at odds, but were just perfect together. Their banter was amazing throughout it. It was just great.
And what's also very interesting about this specific movie is that it's also a Disney first. I don't recall a Disney classic film where the jokes were so rapid fire.
That's true. And also, I noticed that I feel like this is one of the first times where either sarcasm was done or sarcasm was done well. Because
Oh
Cusco
yeah,
is such a sarcastic person, and it was so great.
yeah, and that's just because that's David Spade's MO.
That's
That's just
true.
what he does. And also, oh man, and the songs are sung by Tom Jones. That's just crazy.
It was, oh my gosh.
I love Tom Jones, and but I think what's so great about The Emperor's New Groove is this is I think one of the few Disney movies where people prefer the villains over the heroes. And when you get Eartha Kitt and Patrick Warburton, and I mean Patrick
That's true.
Warburton in my eyes, he can do no wrong. I am such a Patrick Warburton fan. I've been a fan of his ever since I first saw him as David Putty on Seinfeld. And I'm rewatching Seinfeld right now, and he is just a laugh riot. And on Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane just took his career to new heights, and now he's even doing commercials. But he's had such a great career, and I think that The Emperor's New Groove is a major piece of that great career that he has.
That's true. This was just such a. I sure. It's one of those things where, like, I love the villains so much, and you could see that a lot of people do. That Yzma is in easily. I watched a lot of, like, top 10 villains and stuff. Yzma's easily in everyone's top five. Because
Oh,
Yzma is
really?
just so. Yeah, because I think it's usually because of just charisma, like not exactly because she's like extremely evil, because she's kind of more incompetent. Like she tries to do things and she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm just turning him into like a bug. I'm gonna ship the bug up here, and of course he
Yeah.
turns into a llama, and of course
Yeah.
he has Kronk, who
Yeah. My
is
favorite. My
incompetent
favorite.
himself.
Yeah, my favorite part. Like, I actually can. I like to do this one for my wife. I can do Eartha Kitt a little bit in this movie. My favorite part is when he goes, "I'll turn him into a flea, a harmless little flea, and then I will put that flea in a box, and I will put that box inside of another box, and then I will nail that box to myself, and then I'll smash it with a hammer." Like, I love that. I love it when she does that.
I love that scene, and then he's like "alama," and she's such a
Yeah. Or like, and the fact that you have like the squealy, high pitched voice matched up with the low bass voice. It's like, feel the power, Kronk. Oh,
she's like, I feel it.
I can feel it. Like, it's just so great.
It's just so great.
Oh, and the scene where he's talking to the squirrel. That is too
Oh
funny.
my god, yes.
Yeah, it's like he's like, he really doesn't want to talk to you. Like, I can laugh at that, and it's so funny because it was like when my sister and I were in the theater watching that movie for the first time, we still couldn't believe that we were watching a Disney movie. It didn't feel like a Disney movie to us, and the
That's
funny
true.
thing is, this is before Shrek came out.
Yeah, that's true.
So you didn't have that kind of dynamic yet as much in animation. And I also feel that that is kind of where DreamWorks managed to get their in and actually compete with Disney on a truly decent scale, because they took that concept of sarcasm and buddy comedy dynamic and they give it to Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy and Shrek, and the rest is history.
That's
And
true.
it's just so funny how, if you really think about it, Disney really did think outside the box to give us a movie like this, and to a certain degree it works. And as you said, this Disney movie, and like most of these specific movies, have gained a cult status.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I just find it so funny how it's still not as popular as some of the films that we have gotten in the Disney Renaissance. Because as a Disney fan, I would actually want to ask you a personal question. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
would you rather watch one of these films over, like, if you chose like to see one Disney film in a day, would you see a movie like The Emperor's New Groove, or would you want to watch something from the Disney Renaissance or even the current Disney resurgence?
For me, what I love about these films is that they're unique, that you don't see these movies very often in other places done other
Mm-hmm.
ways, and Disney loves to copy itself. And
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes the Renaissance, you're like, okay, do I want to watch another princess, and like the man's there and like she got to go to quest, and like she finds herself. Like, I feel like that's a lot of how a lot of the Disney movies tend to be when you're just when you just see the plots by themselves and you take off all the music, all the humor, all the characters and stuff. If you just look at the plot, that's basically what a lot of them are, just very simple plots.
Yeah.
But when you look at these ones, they're all very different, and they're all very unique. And still to this day, I haven't laughed as much in like a animated movie than in Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the few things that that movie does, maybe outside of a small portion of Aladdin, the Emperor's New Groove that movie brings the belly laughs.
Definitely, like,
And there are very few I mean, the only character that brings the belly laughs for me is probably any cartoon featuring Goofy.
oh yeah,
Goofy brings the
definitely.
Goofy brings the belly laughs, but Emperor's New Groove definitely, that movie was never meant to be taken seriously. I mean, I still remember when Yzma drinks that potion and you think she's going to turn into Maleficent proportion like monster, and she turns into a tiny little white cat. And then she meows, and then the
She
whole
hears her
theater
voice,
cracks up. And
and then she's like, "Oh, is this my voice?"
it's like you never were supposed to
Hilarious.
take that movie seriously from the beginning, and that's
That's
what I
true.
think and that's why I think this movie was so bold. It's so crazy.
It's super crazy. And when you look at the things, this movie made 169 million in the box office,
Mm-hmm.
and the budget was 100 billion. So it's not like seen as like a commercial success, but it made its money back.
Yeah, I think, did you just say 100 billion?
No, I meant 100 million.
Oh my god! I was like, what movie cost that kind of money?
And I was like, are they just throwing money everywhere? Like, what are they doing?
Well, at this point in time, Disney really is throwing money everywhere. It's kind of crazy. I mean,
That's true.
like, look, this isn't part. This is supposed to be part of the show, but I'm really not keen on what they're currently doing right now. I really
Yeah.
feel that. I mean, like, I always appreciate when a new classic comes out and a new Pixar film comes out, but I'm just getting really, I'm getting really sick and tired of sequels and rehashes and remakes because I don't know if you've already seen it yet, but the critics' Rotten Tomato score of the new Lion King is bad.
See, well, okay, I haven't seen. I'm really disappointed with what they're doing this year. I haven't seen Dumbo and I haven't seen Aladdin. My mom bought us advanced screening tickets of The Lion King, which I'm seeing on Thursday. Maybe I'll do a review for it.
I'd like to hear your
Um,
thoughts.
yeah, so maybe I'll film it like on Friday, maybe post it on that on Friday. So we'll see how that goes.
I'll
But
tell you. Yeah.
it's so far, it's not looking good to people. Like I feel like that's been all the movies. Well, I haven't heard anything about Dumbo that came out this year. I never heard
Oh,
anybody talk about Dumbo.
I have a review for Dumbo. I
Well,
thought it
other
was
than
very
you.
I thought Dumbo was very good, but that's just because of the fact that you got to look at that movie not being a Disney recreation and see it as a Tim Burton movie. If you
That's
go
true.
into that movie expecting to see a great Tim Burton movie, you will enjoy Dumbo, which is what
Yeah,
I
you're
did because I love Tim Burton. But when they announced that they want to make a live action movie out of The Nightmare Before Christmas, I threw my hands up and said, "That's it. I am done. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Forget it."
same. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and then the other movies they have coming out this year. Well, they had Toy Story 4 already come out, which I've already seen. They have Frozen 2,
Yeah.
and is that it?
I think Frozen 2 is the last animated film that they're bringing us. And I again, it's like, I could give you my overall thoughts on Frozen, but like Toy Story 4, I'm like, these are two sequels that I think I'm sure Frozen 2 is going to be fun, but it's going to be
Hmm.
one of those movies that you didn't really need. It's
Yeah.
like, did we need a sequel for Wreck-It Ralph? No. But did they do
Mhm.
a good job with the sequel to Wreck-It Ralph? Yes, they did. They did some good things with that
That's true.
movie.
Yeah, that's how
But
I felt with Toy Story 4. Like, it's fun, but did we actually need this? No.
exactly, my wife, I literally had to take the jaws of life and drag her to the theater to see it with me because she kept saying, "No, Toy Story ended with number 3. I don't want to see this movie." But
Like, I
anyway,
wasn't gonna go, but my mom was just like, "Hey, meet me in the movie theaters," and she didn't tell me what movie we're seeing, and she was like, "Yeah, we're seeing Toy Story 4." I'm like, I swear to God, like I just didn't want to see it, but I watched it, and it was good. I enjoyed
yeah,
it. It
it
just,
was a good
it was good.
story. They definitely they gave it relevancy, but if we never got it, we wouldn't have lost sleep over it. But okay, I'm excited now because I want to talk about one of my personal favorite Disney classics, and that is Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
Oh
I
my gosh.
saw this movie in theaters, and it took me until I actually reviewed it on YouTube to see it again. And when I watched it again as an adult, even though I did watch it the first time when I was in my 20s, I watched it and I just said, God damn, this movie really was that great. I had so much fun with this movie. It was just a wild roller coaster adventure, something that we hadn't seen from Disney since the 80s.
That's true. I remember as a kid, um, watching this film, and I remember loving it so much. I remember, I think they had toys come out with Happy Meals, and I remember collecting all of them, which
Oh,
I did
wow.
sometimes with a lot of the Disney movies. Like I collected all the ones from Toy Story, and I remember collecting all the ones from Atlantis because I loved the movie so much as a kid. I was like, "Mom, go get me a kids meal," and I actually cosplayed as Kita a couple years ago at D23, which was really fun. So of course I love this movie and I love the characters that are in it.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember seeing the teaser trailers for Atlantis, and I personally got very excited because this movie looked dark, it looked gritty, it looked very different, especially with all the crazy steampunk elements that I saw throughout the movie, and I was like looking for and I will also say this. When I saw the teaser trailer, and I remember the very, very end, when you hear that really scary, creepy outer world language being spoken by that electric blue lady with the white eyes, I got scared. I was like, what the hell is this? And I
Oh
was
my
like, what
gosh.
the hell is this? And when am I going to go see this?
I remember seeing when I first saw. I don't remember if it was the trailer because again this was a long time ago, but I remember when I first saw. I remember the character designs being very unique to me, or at least I remember thinking they
Yeah.
were very unique, especially to Disney. You wouldn't imagine. Like I remember seeing Milo, and I'm like, "Are you sure this is Disney?" Like, because that really doesn't like animation wise, it doesn't look like a Disney film, but it was just so like well done.
Yeah, I definitely will agree with you there. It reminded me a little bit of the Hercules animation because that also really
Yeah.
did not feel like Disney animation. As a matter of fact, it was animated by the same group that created the 1982 movie The Wall, the Pink Floyd movie. So
Oh
that was
yeah.
definitely an interesting thing. But yeah, I was just excited to see it because, especially when I hear new Disney classic rated PG, I'm like, ooh, this is not for little kids. This might actually have a little bit of interesting stuff to it. So I remembered just having a good time with it. I was a little bit taken aback because when you actually start seeing the movie, it did have a couple of goofy points with the crew. And I was a
Hmm.
little bit upset with the fact that it got a little lighthearted. But overall, it still was great. I loved the heroes. I love the fact that Milo was not the typical hero. He was the geek, the nerd, the
That's true.
scraggly guy. And Michael J. Fox fan right here.
Oh,
Back to the
same.
Future, favorite movie ever.
Mine
Seeing him
too.
in a Disney movie, oh, it was a dream come true for me.
It was so. Oh, I'm love. Back to the Future is my favorite non-Disney movie as well, and it's just so. I just really loved Milo. I really resonated with him because I'm like, oh, I've always been like a little nerd, little geek, and so I feel like Milo resonates with a lot of people because I feel like a lot of people who watch a lot of Disney are also kind of like a little nerdy and little geeky. So I feel like we were all like, oh yeah, I totally feel with Milo, like I am Milo kind of thing, and which
Yeah.
was also really awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, also a lot of the other actors that are in this movie are great. I mean, you've got one of the most legendary voice actors in Corey Burton. You have James Garner. You had John Mahoney. You had. When were you ever going to find out that a Star Trek cast member was going to be in a Disney classic? You had Leonard Nimoy as the King of Atlantis, and
That's true.
Cree Summer as Kira, and Cree Summer has done so much voice work. David Ogden Stiers, David Ogden Stiers has done a lot of voice work for Disney. So to me, it's not such a surprise to see him in there. I mean, also, and now that I watch it again, it's like I watch the lighthearted moments and they are not bad. I do like
Mm.
Vinny. He is definitely the funniest one.
Oh, he's great. I love him.
Yeah, because he's like, yeah, a couple of things blew up. Nobody got hurt, but it was okay.
I was always be like, I love Vinny. I want to be friends with Vinny.
Yeah, but I just love the fact that they step out of the box. They give us a more mature story, something that's actually sort of Indiana Jones like, a mixture of that with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which of course is a Disney classic film, and by classic I mean live action classic film, not animated classic, and just giving us a typical everyday bookworm as your main hero, and also your villains are pretty damn good too. There's a lot of
That's true.
character development in those. That's another thing that Disney does very well during this period of time. They give us a lot of rich character development all around for the main protagonists and antagonists. We didn't get that much in the others.
That's true. Yeah, during this era, they really flesh out, I feel like, or at least to me, it feels like they fleshed out their villains. And because a lot of times the villains kind of feel like I'm evil for the sake of being evil. Like, I always like to look at Maleficent, not including the live action, but from Sleeping Beauty, because she's like, I wasn't invited to a party, so I'm going to curse your daughter, kind of thing.
Yeah,
And it felt like that with a lot of Disney villains, but it was just nice to see, like, oh, there's actually a reason why you're being mean, kind of
yeah.
thing.
I mean, I'll tell you the God's honest truth. If a movie like Atlantis came out in the 1980s, I think it would have been a smash.
Oh, definitely.
It would have been an absolute smash because the 80s was when this was the darker time for animation. The animation was more mature, more gritty, more dark, and there was more fleshed out characters. I'm like, Disney, it's great that you made Atlantis, but you're 20 years too late.
True. That's true.
Yeah,
I think it was just a bad timing of when the
yeah,
movie came out. I think that was just a bad timing with a lot of these movies. It's just that
yeah.
if they came out earlier or later, because if they came out now, it would be different. Because we're always, I feel like animation is either very fluffy or very dark nowadays, so it kind of depends on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just a wrong time.
And one of the other things that I love so much about this movie, and this is actually just a personal thing, the color palette is
Oh my gosh, yeah.
gorgeous. All the blues and teals and whites and golds and greens and purples, it's beautiful to look at. It really
It's
is.
so pretty, especially when they actually get to Atlantis. Like, I remember as a kid, I would tell my mom the day I get the house, I'm gonna make like a bathroom and it's gonna be Atlantis themed because it was just such a pretty color palette, and it just, especially like with the ocean, I'm like, yep, that's all I want.
And one of the other things that I also have to give Disney props for is the fact that this is also their first attempt in their classics library, or really more so in their animation in general. They never really did anything that tackled anything in science fiction or fantasy like that. So it was also really cool to finally see them go down this route. And another one of the other things that I also am noticing, and I talked about this with you when we started putting this idea for the show together, is that at this point in time, a lot of the main heroes or the main characters, they're not Disney princesses, and they're mostly men.
That's true. They're mostly men, and and almost all of them. Well, I don't think Fantasia counts, but yeah, all of them are men or like
And
boys, or some are animals, of course.
and
But
you want to know what else is even more interesting? The other thing I really like about them is even though the males are the main characters, the females are stronger. I
that's
think that they have
true.
very strong female characters in these movies.
Yeah, they're not just like one dimensional. They're not just like, oh, I'm a mermaid, or like, oh, I like books or something. Like, there's actually
Yeah.
like depth, and it's really nice to see.
No, because I mean, Helga is such a great villainess. I
Oh
love
my
her
gosh,
in this
yes.
movie, and Audrey is fantastic. She's a do-it-yourself grease monkey girl. I like that. And Kita is not your average princess. It's
No.
also what really pisses me off, and I talk
Hmm.
about this with my wife all the time. Kita is not in the Disney princess category, but she's a goddamn Disney princess.
I
She
know.
is a
She's an
princess.
actual princess. Like, I remember I watch a lot of, I don't know why, I watch a lot of Disney discussion videos, and there was a discussion video talking about what constitutes to be a Disney princess and why Moana and Kita aren't considered canon Disney princesses. Because when you still look at the Moana, like when you still look at the Disney, like kind of like there's a whole website about it as well, where Moana still hasn't been added as a canon Disney princess, even though she is one, and a lot of it
Yeah.
has to do with marketability and ticket prices. For Kita, since this movie only made 186 million,
Mm-hmm.
and the budget was 120 million, it probably wasn't profitable enough to make her a canon Disney princess. And also with Moana, why they didn't do that for her is because, well, at least this was the theory, was that because cultural insensitivity when it comes to costuming and stuff like that.
Well, I'm going to say this right now. Moana is a Disney princess. She's a chieftain's daughter, so technically that makes her a princess.
Mm-hmm.
But Mulan is not.
Mulan isn't.
Mulan never became a princess. She never even married into royalty. So I
Nope.
still have no idea why she's a Disney princess when Kita is actually a member of royalty in her movie. And that's
True.
another thing that I don't appreciate. I don't appreciate the fact that so the money didn't flow for this
Mm.
movie. So why are you still not trying to market it? I mean, that's one of the main
That's true.
issues that I have with Disney when it comes to the Rescuers Down Under, because of the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it didn't make such strong box office numbers in opening weekend, they pulled all their marketing for that movie. And
Yeah, they do that a
meanwhile,
lot.
yeah, and meanwhile, not only is The Rescuers Down Under a fantastic film, it's
It is.
one of the rare Disney classics or sequels in general that actually surpasses the original.
That's true. I feel like it's
Yeah.
also one of the rarest ones where we're actually in theaters because most Disney sequels never really got to theaters. A lot of them were
Yeah.
directed VHS. I feel like other than Frozen coming up this year, I can't, and not including Pixar, I can't think of a sequel that went to theaters other than The Rescuers Down Under. Maybe I'm just
Well,
forgetting one, but
I'll help you there, because I write a lot of these things down.
mhm.
The Disney canon classics that actually had sequels, there's The Rescuers Down Under, Fantasia 2000, Winnie the
Oh yeah,
Pooh,
true.
and Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Yeah, there hasn't most of them. There hasn't been many that have actually made it to the theaters,
Yeah,
and I think Frozen 2 will eventually, once it comes out, be
yeah.
classified as that as well. But
It will be. It will be. And the one sequel that is not part of these is also because of the fact that a lot of these other sequels, whether they did in fact make it to the theaters or not, like The Jungle Book 2, which did make it to theaters, these are also movies that were not made by the Disney Animation Studios. They were made by a secondary subsidy called Disney Movie Tunes,
oh
which is
yeah,
also why Return to Neverland is not an official Disney canon sequel. And it's such a pity because Return to Neverland is much better than people give it credit for.
yeah, I remember watching it and thinking it was pretty good.
Yeah, because honestly, if it was a Disney canon classic, it would be in our discussion today.
That's true.
Yeah. So then we move. Then I think what we go is. Whoa. Blah, sorry about
I
that.
think we go Lilo and Stitch
Well,
next.
that's what I was just saying. Yeah, we go to 2002, another year where we get two Disney classics in a year.
That's true. Which was very weird.
Yeah, we didn't really. Well, besides 2000, which is another one. But
We
you're
technically
absolutely
got
right.
3 in 2000.
Yeah, technically, you're right. Three. So yeah, Lilo and Stitch. I am still shocked with the fact that I never did see it in theaters because I wanted to see it. I loved the advertising campaign. I loved the
I
poster.
remember it. Oh my gosh.
I love the poster. I love the fact that it's basically all the Disney canon classics characters saying, "Get away from him, he's a freak."
I remember seeing them, especially because they would have them all the time when I would watch like the previews to other movies, and you would be like, you see a classic Disney scene. I remember the one where they did it
Yes.
with Aladdin, and you would just randomly see Stitch coming through, like, "Hey, what's up? I'm just gonna steal your girl and leave."
I
And
remember the Beauty and the Beast. The Beauty
oh
and the
my
Beast. You see the Beauty and the Beast scene where they're dancing in the Great Hall, and then you see the ceiling, and then you see like this little blue spider thing walking across the ceiling, and I'm like, that wasn't in the movie. But then you see the scene from the movie, and you hear AC/DC's Back in Black, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
the marketing they did for this movie was pretty like ingenious. Like after I remember seeing that, I was like, "Oh, okay, now I'm curious of what this is. Like, what is this
Yeah.
little alien monster dude?"
Yeah, because they were basically saying that even Disney has their outcasts. And that's what's really cool because Stitch is technically a villain. That's
Yeah,
what's even more interesting. The main character happens to be a villain. And
he's a
also it's
villain, and then he kind of turns into. It's like he's like an anti-hero. He like kind of turns
yeah,
into a hero by the end of the film.
yeah, and it's also really cool because of the fact that it's their first attempt at actual extraterrestrial life in Disney animated movies. So
That's
that's
true.
also really cool. I also like the fact that they actually went back to watercolors in this movie.
Hmm.
This was the first time that they had watercolor animation since Dumbo. So
Oh
that
my
was pretty
gosh,
crazy.
that's true. It's
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. I remember loving this film, and I think out of all these films, this movie is the most mainstream. You
Yes,
see
you're right.
Stitch on so much merchandise nowadays. Like it's either
Yeah.
Mickey or Stitch. I feel like with everything nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of
Yeah.
random. You're like a mouse, and then this little alien dude. I
Yeah, but I like that. I like the
like
fact
it.
that this specific character really did become such a mainstream character. And I also really appreciated that. I think that out of all of these movies, this one is the most out of the box one. You
Oh,
know, at least
definitely.
that's what I think about, even though there is another movie in this grouping that does involve aliens, which we will get to in a little bit. But no, I love the cast. I mean, you got Devay Chase from The Ring, you got Ving Rhames, you've got Kids in the Hall star Kevin McDonald, you got David Ogden Stiers again, you've got another one of the greatest voice actors of all time in Kevin Michael Richardson. I love the concept art of all the aliens. It's just so
It
creative
looks
by
so
them.
like interesting and amazing. I also love where they chose to set the movie. They chose to set it in Hawaii,
Yes,
which
yes.
was all the music in this film so amazing and beautiful.
Oh
And
yeah, you got the Polynesian music, and you got that mixed in with Elvis. I love
yeah,
that. It's a great combination because Elvis did a lot of filming in Hawaii, which is why they go hand in hand.
it's true.
But yeah,
I remember this film was the reason why I knew who Elvis was. Because I remember watching this film, I'm like, who's that? And then my mom introduced me to Elvis. So I think this film also introduced a lot of other kids that, like me, into Elvis and be like, oh, who is this random dude from like the 50s and 60s?
well, that's also wonderful because that's what I've been saying. I mean, I just did a recent live stream with my friend about music, and I was talking about how in mainstream radio, terrestrial radio, that all these classic songs from the decades like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they're all going away. At least Disney tried to go out of the way to try and preserve something as great as this. Also, you have to give Disney credit because when you take a look at how so many people are screaming about the fact that there's not enough diversity, well, Disney gave us people from Hawaii and Polynesian culture. I mean, I looked at it and I didn't see anything that was offensive about it. I mean, people also have to remember that yes, one of Lilo's friends was a white girl in a hula scoop skirt, but you also have to remember that there are white and Polynesian people living on the island of Hawaii, and the white people also embrace the culture of Hawaii because it's their home.
That's true. Like it was really interesting because Lilo and her sister are dancers, and I believe it was like Lilo's sister's boyfriend. I can't remember his name off the top of the head. He also did, was it fire twirling? I don't know the
Yeah,
exact term
yeah.
of it, but yeah, he did like fire twirling, which was so interesting to see because you never really got to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I loved how he was a true heart of gold and a bumbling idiot all at the same time
Yeah,
because Lilo's older sister, who was also played by Tia Carrere, very famous actress and singer, she that's another thing that I also really liked about this because the family life of these two girls is so real because there are kids out there that are orphaned due to unfortunate things like car accidents.
yeah.
And the fact that Lilo is such a free spirit, and you know that her sister adores her so much and just wants to keep her under control because she doesn't want child services to take her away from her. They're family. Wahine, family. That's what this movie
That's
is
true.
really all about. Family and figuring out where you belong. And that's what I love so much about Stitch because he starts off as a very mischievous villain and has a little bit in common with Lilo too, because she's just as mischievous in her own special way.
That's
But at
true.
the end, they grow together as friends, and they both learn the importance of belonging in family, which is the message that this movie gives you. It's very powerful. It's much more powerful than you would anticipate it to be, especially when you take a look at the marketing campaign and what this movie becomes. It's a
Oh,
big
definitely.
I remember seeing that movie for the first time and just turning off the movie being surprised by how I felt at the end.
It's such a good movie, and I think they. What was I gonna say? I think that they really um, well, I think that they did a really good job with it. Especially, I remember it being pretty funny. I haven't watched it in like a year or two, but I remember it being pretty funny and pretty emotional, more emotional than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially
I
because
did
I
get a little
remember,
misty eyed.
huh?
I did get a little misty eyed while I was watching it. I did.
Oh yeah, I remember because there's this one like line that everybody always takes away from this film. It's like Ohana means family. Family means, ooh, what's the second part of it? It's like family means like never giving up on each other and something like
Oh, I
that.
thought. Oh
And
shoot! I just missed that. I thought it was Wahine or.
Oh
Or did
no,
I
it's
miss that?
Ohana. Yeah,
Ohana. Okay, I don't remember.
you're
I think
good.
yeah, I don't want. I don't want. I'm not trying to offend people here. I know straight white guy here. I'm not trying to do anything to offend people.
But yeah, it was such a good movie, and yeah, definitely out of all these films is the most popular. Well, not most popular when it came out, but most popular now.
Yeah, but I think it's time for the two of us to gush over. Let me just put it this way. I am still kicking myself about the fact that it took me till last April of 2019 to see this movie for the first time.
Oh my
Why did I take so long to see Treasure Planet?
god.
Why, oh, why, oh, why?
See, so I don't
Oh,
actually remember the first time I watched it, but I have the DVD from the original time I bought it when my mom bought it for me when I was a kid, it came out in 2012. So I was probably about 5 the first time I watched this film. And I've loved it ever since I was a kid. I would always watch it, and it's still like my favorite film. When I saw merchandise for it, it was at D23 the last time I went. I bought it. I care it was $75 because you never see merchandise about Treasure Planet, so I bought it.
that is very true. Funko needs to capitalize.
They really do.
I mean, like the fact that they just made the Black Cauldron Funko Pops, which just went on sale on Amazon this morning. I'm
Ooh,
like, where are the Treasure Planet Funko Pops already? Where's the Atlantis Funko Pops? You know, like
I
I
need
want
them.
these. They're
this film,
great.
this film is so good. It just uh
I think I mean, like, where do I even start? I mean, the story, the fact that Ron Clements and John Musker were begging Jeffrey Katzenberg after The Little Mermaid came out in theaters. They said this is their pet project. They wanted to make this movie as part of the Disney Renaissance. They were
Mhm.
like, "Will you let us make this? Can we do this now? We want to basically take Treasure Island and turn it into a science fiction adventure. Can we do this?" And they kept getting shot down. And unfortunately, I think in 2002 it was too little, too late, because now Pixar and DreamWorks are at the top of their game, and nobody is wanting to look at 2D animation anymore. Such a pity, because the story is fantastic. The set pieces are beautiful. Johnny Resnick singing the songs from the Goo Goo Dolls, wonderful. The cast is the next to Atlantis. I think this is the most dynamic cast in a Disney film at this time period. I love everybody in this movie. Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
Mm.
David Hyde Pierce, Emma Thompson, Laurie Metcalf, Martin Short. Do I need to continue? And
No,
I
like
love,
everyone's so
yeah,
amazing. It's
and I
mm.
and I love the beautiful blending of the CGI and the 2D, especially in Silver himself.
Oh my gosh, yes. This film was actually the most expensive. Oh no, not the most expensive. It was one of the most expensive at 140 million, which is you can really see it, especially in the opening scene where you see Jim on his I don't remember what it was exactly called, but he's like kind of flying down, basically like I'm gonna say futuristic skateboarding, but
Yeah.
what he's going through and that entire scene is just so beautiful. And I remember when the first time I actually see like the space moon, that was
Mm.
beautiful as well.
Oh
And
yeah, just the way
all
the
the
camera
intricacies of,
pans.
yeah, all of the intricacies of John Silver when he just like like he tries to get a spoon or he does anything with his arms or legs. It's just so amazingly beautiful to watch. Even as a kid, I recognized that and I was like, wow, this is pretty.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I talked about Titan AE earlier, because a lot of the animation style that you see in Treasure Planet was an innovational thing with Titan AE 2 years prior. The fact that it actually looks in certain scenes like a camera is actually panning around the character. So the fact that they actually are turning a 2D cell animated character into a technically 3D image is just breathtaking. And the fact that it feels like when the animation cells are being panned across, it feels like a camera is actually moving, and it's just so different and exciting. And the big steampunk spaceships and that are actually boats, it's just so creative. I'm like, why did it take so long for me to see it, and why did nobody tell me to see it, you know?
Yeah, it's just such a beautiful and amazing film. Um, in every aspect. I remember during this time I was also obsessed with Muppets Treasure Island, and
Uh,
which this movie is based off of the original Treasure Island like classic. So I fell in love with both of these at the exact same time, and probably why this Treasure Island's like my favorite classic. But
yeah.
it's just so amazing, especially like the characters. Like you can really relate to Jim Hawkins as a main character. He just really wants to. He has this dream that he wants to do. He wants to go and explore, and it's just he, especially in Treasure Planet, they expand on his character more and showing like, oh, he didn't have a like his dad left, and he
Yes.
basically has daddy issues, and he really thinks about that, and that's why him and John Silver get so close, and why it's so devastating when John
Hello?
Silver sort of not in the theater. I remember watching this film and I was like, oh my gosh, that just like it hits me every time I think about it. Just that betrayal
Yeah.
and the whole montage of them with the song, which I listen to constantly.
Oh, it's a beautiful song.
It's a
Beautiful
beautiful
song.
song. I think it's "You're Still Here" or "I'm Still Here." That montage of them getting closer together, having that relationship. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, that's a great song, and I love the song that's played at the end of the credits, "Where You Are." I think that's a great song, but
Mm.
I love the fact that Silver, while he is the main villain of this film, he's not necessarily a villain to Jim, because he sees Jim as a kid who just needs a father figure in his life. And
Mm.
even when he shows him his true self and he shows what his plans are to be, he doesn't want Jim to get caught in the crossfire, because he really does have a soft spot for Jim. And that's another thing that you just don't see. He's not cookie cutter. I mean,
Mhm.
he probably has a cookie cutter in his cybernetic arm for all we know, but I know for a solid
Probably.
fact that he's not your typical Disney villain, and he's not black and white. And that's why I love that. And I also just love all the creative things. I love the fact that he doesn't have a parrot, but he had that little morph. I thought that was just so
I love the little
clever.
morph.
And also, and also the captain and Dilfer
Oh
are
my
just
gosh.
the two best characters. Dr. Doppler, I don't even think he's even in the book. But the fact that
I don't
David
think
Hyde
so.
Pierce and Emma Thompson are in this movie and they are actually love interests, I love their characters so much. They are the best comic relief in this movie. They are so great together.
They are so amazing. I love the aspects. The captain, I actually am working on a cosplay to cosplay her because I love her so freaking much.
Yeah.
And they are just the characters, most of them, I don't know. I'm still on the fence about the robot. I can't remember his name. I want to say
Ben. Ben.
Ben, that's what it was. Ben. He hits a hit for miss. Every time I watch it, I'm either like, oh my gosh, it's Jar Jar on the screen, or
Well,
like I
it's
don't know, he
Martin
gives me
Short.
such Jar Jar Binks vibes every time I watch it. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't know, love hate character,
It's
but
it,
I
it's
love
Martin
him.
it's Martin Short, and Martin Short for most people is hit or miss. But I will just say that I'm so glad that I finally saw it. I think it's one of my favorite Disney movies now of all time. I mean, literally after I turned off the TV where I actually DVR'd it or downloaded it or whatever, I literally went onto Amazon and I bought the movie, because like I have to have this movie in my collection, and it was worth it. So yeah, it's so great. And I'm also very glad to know that both of these 2002 classics did get nominated for Best Animated Feature, because we also have to remember this was also the decade where the Oscars announced the news award for Best Animated Feature. So it was great to actually see animated films getting acknowledged and being truly relevant. And it was great to see the both of them in there. So I now got to ask you another question.
Mm.
I don't know how far you want to talk about the next three films.
Oh my god.
So
I
yeah, like
mean,
how do we do this?
good question. I mean, the only one that I mean, as a kid, I loved Brother Bear. I think I might still have the DVD. I loved it as a kid. Home on the Range was a dumpster fire. I watched once and I was like, never again. Same with Chicken Little was like a dumpster fire I watched once and never wanted to think about again.
Yeah, I think we could probably, because also I don't want you to be on here forever talking about Disney movies and stuff like that, because I think after we get to the end of the second hour we're going to lose the audience. So yeah, so like I watched Brother Bear for the first time when I actually first started doing my Out of the Boss segment on my channel. And I don't think that Brother Bear was terrible, but it wasn't great either. I mean, I did love the animation. I loved the concept of the story because, again, it wasn't something that we really ever got. Although, if you really think about it, we got that again from Disney in the form of Brave, and Brave did a little bit better.
True.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about bears, but I did like the little relationship that was created with the little bear cub Coda, and I did like some of the voice actors that they got. I mean, they got Joaquin Phoenix to voice the main character, and you really can't have a Disney movie that depicts the Yukon landscape without getting Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis.
True.
And I did like to actually see Rick Moranis to a certain degree back in film, but the fact that he and Dave Thomas did their strange brew routine in the form of animated moose was very humorous.
It was very humorous. I remember as a kid, I remember singing the song. I can't remember exactly what it was called. It was like, but I can remember the melody of it. And I remember watching the relationship that the two main characters have was just so amazing. I don't know, because I'm an only child. And so ever seeing this like on screen like characters who may not be related but kind of had like that kind of sibling relationship always resonated with me. So it was
Yeah.
always nice to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I did like the little relationship. I thought that the little bear cub was absolutely adorable. And I also did like the animation a great deal. I
Mhm.
think that, especially when they did the whole thing, it was also really cool to see a little bit of like Eskimo mythology. I thought that that was really, really cool to see, especially considering the fact that everybody was up in arms with how Disney butchered Pocahontas. So
That's
to
true.
actually see some truly great, maybe it wasn't truly great, but to just see Native American culture done in a much more accurate form than what it was before. You know, it was good to
Yeah.
actually see. Yeah, the main character's name was Kenai. That's what it was. I
Okay,
remembered it was
that's
with
true.
K. It was Kenai and Coda. But
That's weird.
also the big bust here is also that they got Phil Collins back. I felt that like Phil Collins, much like Elton John, it's a one and done. You know, he did great for Tarzan. Why do you bring him back for this? You know?
True. I remember liking it, but it's not as memorable as the music's not as memorable as Tarzan easily. Like
Exactly, exactly. I mean, you really would expect them to do something a little bit different, but you know what? At the end of the day, you know, I remember seeing the trailer for it in theaters and I was really excited to see it, but then, you know, after getting Finding Nemo, it's like, who wants to see another Disney movie after that year? You saw the best one.
that's true, that's true. And this movie was actually the cheapest one they made. It was only 45 million for the budget.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
I know, but it or 46 million, but it made 250 million in the box office. So it was one of their more well done. I mean, more critically acclaimed out of all of them because a lot of them was in between the 100 million to about 200 million. So
Yeah. But Home on the Range.
oh god, Home on the Range.
Um You want to talk about a movie that you're watching and you're wondering how this is a Disney movie? It's totally this one. This movie doesn't look, sound, or feel like a Disney movie. And you know that when your main character is voiced by Roseanne, you know that this movie is officially doomed to failure.
True. I remember as a kid thinking that I thought it was a DreamWorks film or some other film. If you told me it was Disney, I would not have believed you. And I
I
still sometimes don't feel like it is. It's just
No, I watched it for the first time this year on my show, and this was the only Disney canon classic because I rate my Disney classics on a scale of 1 to 4. I gave Home on the Range 0.
there's nothing good about it.
No, I mean, I
Nothing
feel,
good.
and you want to know what I feel the most for? I feel horrible for Judi Dench. The fact that her name is associated with this movie is a travesty. I
That's
mean,
true.
Jennifer Tilly, yes, I can understand that. Randy Quaid, oh yeah, totally, could fit there perfectly. But
Hmm.
also, you got Steve Buscemi in a small role. You got Cuba Gooding Jr. in this movie. I'm like, it's like this is a hodgepodge hodgepodge of one hell of a hot mess. It really is.
Yeah.
The movie is so juvenile and dumb. I mean, this is the first time that a Disney classic actually has fart humor.
Yeah, and that never happens. You're just sitting here like, wait, what? This is like that's why I thought it was DreamWorks because DreamWorks loves fart humor and poop jokes. So I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like
I
why
mean,
it would be DreamWorks? That would make
and,
sense.
and I also found it really funny. I'm like, how the hell is Roseanne gonna be family friendly? You know, like
There's
that was
no
just yeah. The only way for her to be family friendly is to just not be funny.
yeah, basically. I don't
She
remember that film
literally
being funny.
no. I was looking at this movie and I was just like, I wanted to die. I wanted to die. I wanted to gouge my eyes out because I couldn't get over the fact that this was a Disney classic movie. That's
It
what
makes it worse
upsets
when
me
you
about
think
it.
yeah, it makes it worse when you think it's a Disney movie. Like it automatically just gets worse in my brain.
Exactly. And
Like if
it's
it was
like,
something else,
and,
I would be like, all right, but
and I mean, it's like, you can't even take the villains seriously. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can't take Yzma seriously, but at least Yzma is likable.
that's true. At least she's funny. At least she is entertaining. You don't get any of that from this movie.
Yeah, it's so terrible. I felt so bad for Disney because at this point in time, this was when the Disney Animation Studio was practically left for dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the year, I don't remember the exact year, where the Disney executives basically tapped John Lasseter and said, you need to be in charge of the animation studios now because we are literally in dire straits. And I still remember one of my fellow YouTubers telling me that when John Lasseter first got the job as the head of the studio, he walked around the studio and he saw like lifeless drones at these animation stations. Like he saw these people that just had no love, no enthusiasm for anything that they were doing. And quite frankly, between Treasure Planet and Meet the Robinsons, I think it really shows.
Yeah, like John Lasseter became the chief creative officer while Meet the Robinsons was being made, and so he made them change about 60% of the film because he came on.
Yeah, and I
So
mean,
yeah,
and, and,
you can.
and think about it this way, can you blame Disney for basically leaving the studio for dead? Because think about the movies that were coming out thanks to Pixar. You
That's
had
true.
Monsters Inc. in 2001. You had Finding Nemo in 2003. You have one of the greatest Disney Pixar films of all time in 2004 with The Incredibles.
Yeah, that's true.
So think about how much money those movies were grossing for Disney. So they're like, Disney Animation Studios, what do we need this for? You know? But
Yeah,
the
that's
fact that
true.
the fact that they didn't even try to give them a motivational nudge to try and give the kids, just like not just the kids, all the Disney viewers out there a good product. You literally, this is the first time where, pardon my French, Disney actually gives the audiences a steaming pile of shit.
Definitely. Like this is the first time where like the canon Disney name for greatness was like, oh, but why are we calling Disney great after these movies kind of thing? You know what I mean? Like if you're only these
Exactly.
movies come out, you're like, wow, okay, Disney has like Disney has fallen downhill kind of thing. Like Disney's not the
Yeah.
big man anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people always say that the worst time for Disney is the 80s, which is the dark ages that they call it. But no, I'm sorry. During this period of time, this was definitely where I think Disney hit its true low point as far as its animated canon. And then when you move on to Chicken Little,
Oh
you
God.
know, the concept, I will tell you one thing.
Hmm.
I will give Disney credit for this movie on one minor thing, and that is the fact that taking a simple folk tale like Chicken Little and putting a modern spin on it, that's pretty clever.
True.
Turning it into an alien invasion. It's clever, but it's poorly executed.
I remember if you look at the character designs, I'm just like, well, that was a choice. Like they're all just so I guess more grotesque. Like it's not overtly disgusting, but every time I think about it, I think about what the pig looks like, and I'm like, good God, why? It's just
And
it's not pretty to look at.
yeah, and you gotta hear this voice cast. You gotta hear all the famous names that are in this movie.
Oh God.
Zach Braff,
Hmm.
Don Knotts, Patrick Stewart, Amy Sedaris, Steve Zahn, Joan Cusack, Wallace Shawn, Harry Shearer, Fred Willard, Catherine O'Hara, Patrick Warburton. I didn't even know that he was in this movie. Adam West.
Oh wow. So they had
Look,
good cast of.
you have a great voice cast, and I recognized Patrick Stewart right off the bat. And like when I heard his voice and I saw what this movie was, I was like, "Oh, Patrick, I'm
And
sorry."
you're like, you need to get a new agent. Like, this, like it was just this
Yeah,
movie is I think the most forgettable. Like even more forgettable than Dinosaur. Even though I remember the title, like I cannot remember the first. Like after the first 15 minutes, I cannot remember. I don't remember how it ends. I don't remember what happens after the first 15 minutes of this film.
and also I will tell you one thing that I truly hate about this movie.
Hmm.
If you want to talk about a movie that really doesn't feel like a Disney movie, it will definitely be this one in a very negative way,
Hmm.
because in this movie, the fact that the main character is basically hated by his own father, it's disgusting. There's like this is a story about a kid that's an outcast, and at the same time, it's not just his it's not just the bullies in school. Like everyone, including his own father, are putting him down just because he is not what his father wanted him to be. I mean, like, you're selling this movie to children. You want to give them a positive. I mean, yes, I understand. You want to let kids know that life is not all butterflies and unicorns. You want to let them know that there are realistic things. But even though a father's neglect for a child is a real thing, that's just one of the few things you don't show to kids.
Yeah, kind of like it just wasn't really necessary in the film. Like you could have had him be more distant, but you don't need him to straight up be like, "Yo, you're a disappointment." You know, you don't need to straight up say that. You could be implied, but it doesn't need to be full on straight on the screen.
Yeah, it was just so sad, and this movie is. I mean, you also have to give Disney a little bit of props, because this was when they were officially trying to take their own crack at CGI animation now to compete with the Pixar studio, because they obviously realize that this is going to be where the future is. But
Mhm.
you can definitely tell that this is the first one, because the
For sure.
animation is terrible. It's very choppy. It's very fake looking. Again, you don't really like Home on the Range. You don't believe you're watching a Disney movie when you're watching Chicken Little.
Like you would just sit there and you're just watching and you're like, why am I doing this to myself? That's what it feels like. This
That's
and Home on the
exactly
Range.
how I felt. Yeah, when I was watching both of these, when I was watching Home on the Range and Chicken Little, I said, I know why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to be a completionist, to watch all the Disney canon classics. Why'd you have to make these so horrible?
I know. I'm like, why is this so? I'm just. I would like sit there watch it and be like, you couldn't pay me to watch the rest of this. Like,
Yeah,
it's
at these
so
two
bad.
movies, yeah, I gave Home on the Range 0 stars. I gave Chicken Little a half a star out of 4. So because again, I had to give Disney, because the other thing is, I mentioned earlier that these specific films in this specific decade were, I referred to them as the lost years, and also the innovative and thinking out of the box.
Mhm.
At least with Chicken Little, they were really thinking out of the box when it came to
That's
such a
true.
simple story like that. So that's pretty much the only saving grace that I have for this movie. The only thing that I remember from this movie that I like is the song at the beginning of the movie, One Little
Okay.
Slip by the Bare Naked Ladies, because it's very good.
It is a good song, but this movie actually made, I think, the second highest out of all these after Dinosaur, which is 314 million,
That's
which kind of
crazy.
surprises me.
Well, well, one of the other things about that movie, even though the themes of the relationship with Chicken Little and his father, it definitely has appeal that the young kid, the little kids would love the humor, because there's a lot
Hmm.
of slapstick. There's a lot of stuff that little kids really, really like. But
Yeah, that's true.
but I'll tell you, there are people that when I actually reviewed Chicken Little and I gave it the review that I did, there were some people that said, I loved this movie when I was a kid. I didn't want to get into a fight, but I was basically saying inside, watch it again and
Yeah,
come
like
back to me.
you're like, just come back to me in a couple hours and tell me how you feel. Like, do
Like,
you?
like if you loved it as a kid, I get it. But if you liked it in your teens or in your early stages of adulthood, I will hunt you down so I can shake your hand and say you succeeded where I could not.
Yeah, I would have been like, I don't get it, man.
Yeah, it's such a that
Okay.
these three films are just so I don't know.
Can't.
It's sad. It's sad to know that Disney's name is attached to these, and it's even worse that they are part of the canon library. Because
Yeah.
truthfully, if they were not part of the canon library, I would never have watched them.
Oh,
Never.
yeah.
I'm glad that I've watched them now. Maybe I'll watch Brother Bear at some point in time just for the sake of watching it to see if I like it as a couple years later. But Home on the Range, Chicken Little, I will
Yeah.
never see them again. Never. Glad that I've seen them either way, but never again. So, Meet the Robinsons.
Now, I actually really liked Meet the Robinsons as a kid. I remember Meet the Robinsons was one of the, I think one of the influences of me actually liking science and wanting to get into science, which I think that movie does it very well. It's for introducing, I guess, that scientific aspect because you never really got that in any of the movies beforehand, which was really nice to see.
Yeah, yeah. And what I really think that's interesting about Meet the Robinsons is it sort of takes on a lot of the themes that Chicken Little had, but it put them more and gave it a more positive spin, basically saying that you, if you are determined, if you want to succeed, you will succeed if you work for it.
It's true. And it was I noticed like a clear distinction that kind of like um you really empathize with the main character because
Yeah,
like he had no it wasn't his fault that he was an orphan. It wasn't his fault that parents didn't want to adopt him because he's older. Kid usually parents who go want to adopt a kid want a kid who is younger so they can actually like grow up with them and like influence them. They don't usually don't want someone who's like 12 and that's just like the sadness of like the adoption industry, which I thought was actually really well done and portrayed and
yeah, yeah. That's definitely
just really
something that Disney
empathized
never.
with him.
Yeah, because they have had orphans in the movies before. Like they did have Penny in The Rescuers,
Hmm.
but orphanage life they never really gave us a depiction of it. And I also really appreciate when Disney makes movies in modern times
Mm.
because most of the time it's fairy tales, and also in this age I like the fact that they also didn't give us movies at this time period most of the time in like fairy tale lands. Like Lilo and Stitch was modern times. Emperor's New Groove was more of a realistic historical time. I loved the fact that Atlantis was like in the 1930s and 40s, and then you had the future and Treasure Planet to a degree. Brother Bear, you could probably say, was also modern times.
Yeah, like this film, I want to say it was. If you look at like kind of like aesthetic wise, I want to say it's maybe the 50s or 60s that it was set.
Yeah,
And then I know that when they go into the future, it's 2037. So
right.
you see that clear distinction, which
Yeah, but yeah, it's got very likable characters. It's got one of the coolest and most clever villains, a very different kind of villain. I loved the whole. You see, that was another thing I liked about this specific movie. This was the first time that we actually got a twist in
that's true.
Disney classics, and it was so beautifully done. It also the movie actually the bowler hat guy actually foreshadows Frozen.
Does it really?
Yeah, because he talks to his younger self and he says, everybody is going to tell you to let it go, but don't.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I loved his character. Him and Doris are a fantastic team. And the best part is when you find out actually who is in charge of who. That's the
That's true.
cool part. So not only do you know who is in charge of who, but you also find out who he really is. And also, Lewis is such a likable character, even with his imperfections. That's what I like about him. It's not my personal favorite movie, but I truly admire the style of the film and the different kind of a story. It's also one of those movies that doesn't actually feel like a Disney movie until you get to the end.
That's true. Like, you have to fully watch the movie to experience and feel it. Like, this movie is just a fun time.
Yeah.
It really feels just interesting, and I feel like, I don't know if it's one of the first films, but I feel like because I can't honestly think, like, I can't think of like a full on movie that actually went into the future like this.
It felt like we went into Tomorrowland at the Disney theme parks.
Oh, definitely. Like, it literally, like, it felt like if they made if they made a live action movie of this one instead of Tomorrowland, like, you remember that one movie that
I
came out?
did. Yeah,
Yeah,
I went to go see it because it was Brad Bird, and I'm a big Brad Bird fan, but I have to admit I was somewhat disappointed with Tomorrowland.
I watched, I think, the first 15 minutes and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. It was I just wasn't into it. But yeah, if they made a live action movie of this instead of that, I think it would be a lot better. And you could just call it Tomorrowland, because it just really feels like that. It was really cool and interesting to watch, especially because around this time I used to go to Disneyland like all the time. I still do until I moved here. But
Lucky you.
I would always love to go into this like Tomorrowland area where it had like the futuristic home, and it just felt like Meet the Robinsons to me, because all the stuff they had in that home was in future Meet the Robinsons.
Exactly. That's what's, and it's also like, I think the first time when Lewis meets his future family, it's also really different because it's just completely wacky. Like
Oh yeah.
I never saw Disney get that wacky in my life.
True. Like, Disney's not really known for wacky. Maybe like a little strange, but not wacky at all. And it
Yeah,
was just
I never seen them that wacky. This was like, I swear to God, when I was watching that specific scene when he was meeting all those relatives, I swear to God, I thought I was watching an Animaniacs episode. That's what it felt like to me. It was just so out. It felt very Warner Brothers to me. That's what it felt like, Looney
oh
Tunes.
yeah. Yeah, it does feel like that.
And you got some good cast members in this movie too. I mean, you got Adam West again. Annette Bening is in this movie. Wow, like who would have ever thought Annette Bening would be in a Disney movie before? But this is the only time where Disney actually knows how to do a dinosaur right.
That's true. Oh, I love the dinosaur. I Every time I think
Everyone
of this
loves the
movie,
dinosaur.
I think of that one line where he's like, "I got a big head and little arms," and I
And he's
love that
talking in
line.
yeah, he's talking like he's like waving his hands all the time. But
It was
no,
hilarious. It was just a good
you know
movie.
what? You know, I definitely think I need to rewatch this one. When I watched it, it was my wife that wanted to watch it with me because she liked it and she
Mm.
had seen it before I did. So this was a whole new experience for me. I really do think at this point I should give it a rewatch. I really should.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in a while because it used to be like a huge thing I love to watch as a kid, and I just kind of took a break from it because I was starting to feel burned out. But I think I need to give it a watch again.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And speaking of movies that I haven't watched in a while, that's the last one that we'll be talking about. I have not watched Bolt in such a while, and I'm planning to watch it next year. Part of me was actually extremely tempted to watch it before we got together and did this live show, but I do remember when it first came out. You see, at this point in time, this was when I truly had given up on the Disney Canon classics. Like, I
Mm.
didn't want to see a Disney Canon classic in theaters. I was literally looking at these movies, and even movies like Bolt and Meet the Robinsons, like, I didn't even know that they were canon classics. I really thought that at this point Disney had just dumped their animation studios and just stopped making canon classics,
Mm.
because now because at this point in time you had Cars, and we all know how
That's true.
popular Cars was.
I was
And
so in love with Cars.
yeah, and in 2007 you had one of my personal favorite Pixar movies that more people should be talking about, and that's Ratatouille. I love
Oh, I love
Ratatouille.
Ratatouille.
And in 2008 you have Wall-E. You want to talk about innovative and outside the box? You can't get more than that in Wall-E. But
That's true.
I do remember seeing the trailers for Bolt, the one thing that sticks out about the trailers is John Travolta. I was like, when is John Travolta ever going to do a Disney movie? That was a big surprise to me. That's another
So
thing
true.
that in regards to these movies that was very surprising. They really found a whole bunch of actors that you never in a million years would have thought would have been in Disney movies, and here they are.
That's true. What I remember a lot about the marketing, and one of the reasons why I watched it, is that they really pushed that Miley Cyrus was in this movie.
Oh
They
yeah, well
really
yeah,
pushed it.
you had
Yeah,
to because
especially
this was
because
when she was popular.
yeah, because this movie came out when I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I, of course, at this time was watching Hannah Montana, and of course I was like, "Ooh, I have to go watch a movie where Miley Cyrus is in," and I haven't watched it since it came out, or so I haven't watched it since I was 10.
Yeah,
And
and think about
crazy.
who else, and look at who else is in this movie. You've got Malcolm McDowell.
Mm,
Malcolm McDowell, you've got James Lipton, who does the Inside the Actors Studio stuff, and you've got Dietrich Bader. You've also got young Chloe Grace Moretz. I'm like, so you got a bunch of very big names at this time, also, and it's also the first time uh, in a couple of years where they actually focus on the animal.
that's true.
Yeah, like and that's another thing. It's like I remembered when people were talking about when Zootopia came out in theaters, and just for the record, Zootopia is now in my top 3 Disney classics of all time.
Oh, it's
But
good.
I remember that they were basically saying this is the first time since Robin Hood that we're going to have anthropomorphic animals. I'm like, I take it these people never saw Chicken Little. Thank God.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but
I
I
mean,
like
Brother Bear
this
kind
one.
of, but
I just remember from if I there's a couple things that I can remember from this movie, but I'm definitely going to have to rewatch it. I just remember finding it fun. I had a good time with it. I thought that Bolt was such an adorable character, and the part that I remembered the most was him going from the East Coast to the West Coast and meeting 2 different sets of pigeons.
I remember that too. That was hilarious.
Like the New York pigeons basically talked like Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta, and Joe Pesci from Goodfellas. And when they get
True.
to Hollywood, the pigeons are acting like Hollywood execs. Like I still remember this one scene that made me laugh so hard. This one pigeon says to the other pigeon, "Go get me a whole wheat bagel. Do not come back at me with whole grain." I'm like, oh my God, he's acting like a director. I was surprised he didn't ask for a soy latte on top of that.
It was good. I like the commentary they did on Hollywood because I feel like they did a
Yeah.
lot of that, which was really interesting. I remember watching it, like I remember having fun, but I remember it being just like forgettable. Like I can't remember the ending off the top of my head,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of forgettable. Like it was fun at the time, but afterwards you're like, would I rewatch it? Like I'm okay, kind of thing.
No, it was like I remembered when I watched it long after it hit theaters, and I never intended to, but I just remembered having a good time with it, and I knew, and I own it. I haven't even watched the copy that I own yet, but I buy Disney Canon Classics knowing that there's rewatchability. And I just remembered after I watched Bolt, I remembered saying to myself, I really want to watch this movie again, and I didn't. But I still do want to watch it again. And now, thanks to my YouTube show, I will. And I
That's
have
true.
a feeling I'm going to walk away just remembering it and liking it. Because Rhino the Hamster is also, I remember him being such a funny character because I love how Bolt is still trying to grasp the concept that he is a real dog. He's not a dog with superpowers. And I love the fact that he's also, so what I also like about it is the commentary of the fan.
Yeah.
Rhino is the super fan. Rhino is looking at Bolt as if he really is that superhero dog.
Sure. I remember watching it as a kid, and I remember thinking, especially with all the jokes and stuff like that, it just didn't. It felt like it wasn't aimed towards kids. Like since
I
I was
agree.
10, I was still a kid, and to me, it just felt like it wasn't. It felt like it was aimed for like an older audience, which
Yes, I agree.
which is like a hit or a miss. Which for me at the time, I was kind of like, well, I'm not into this. It's kind of not. It's not like it didn't feel like it was targeted towards me, but I feel like I would like it more if I watched it now.
Yeah, I mean, this was really the first one. I think that this was, along with Meet the Robinsons, these two were the first steps to getting Disney to where it is right now. I mean,
Mhm.
I definitely feel that after Bolt, I liked the fact that John Lasseter basically said, okay, guys, we're going to get back to basics and we're going to go back to the old formula with a couple of new things that we've never done before. And that, of course, was The Princess and the Frog. But after that, we did get, I think right now where we are, I think that even when you take a look at these past 10, this specific 10-year period next to the period that came before it, which is the Disney Renaissance, I actually think that where we are now, the Disney Resurgence, whatever it's called right now, or the Disney Second Renaissance, I think that the Disney animation studios are in the best place possible because they're making films that stick to the old formula. They're making films that are completely innovative and outside of the box. And they're doing something that they've never done before. And you know something? I'm glad that they're doing it. They're making fun of themselves.
That's true. They've kind of realized that like they can't just do all the same everything. They need to have a good mix of everything. They need to have a good mix of originality with the regular formulas, which is really nice and
Exactly.
interesting to see.
But the one thing that I'm afraid of is I hope that they quit while they're ahead and start trying to make sure that they look into other new directions rather than just recycling. Because right now we're getting a lot of twist endings. And I'm like, guys, I'm glad that this is happening, but you gotta be careful because you don't want people to get sick and tired of this, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that I feel that Disney is going to have issues with at this point in time in terms of their animation studios. I mean, and the funny part is, thanks to John Lasseter doing what he did for the Disney Animation Studios from 2009 until he left in 2017/2018, it's funny how the scales basically tipped because like animation studios were here, and Pixar was here, and then they went that way, and now right now I think they're actually both in the center. I really
Yeah,
do
I
because
think they're both really good because if you think about the most popular films that have come out in the last like couple of years, they're both about the same. Like we have Coco, we have Moana, we have I don't know how far back I want to go because I'm blanking on all Disney animated films as of late.
yeah, we had. I mean, I definitely think that even though they stuck to the original I mean, when you take a look at the Second Renaissance, the Resurgence, or whatever you want to call it, the only Disney classic in this grouping that actually stuck to the original formula next to Princess and the Frog was Frozen.
That's true.
I think that Tangled was hilarious. I thought that Tangled was a laugh fest. I thought it was so funny.
Oh, it's so great.
Wreck-It Ralph, forget it. Wreck-It Ralph is one of my personal favorites because I loved the fact that they tried to tap into video game culture. I thought it was such a bold move to do. And I love the fact that, you know, Vanellope is a Disney princess, but she's also completely outside the box as a Disney princess. I like that.
True.
And, you know, you also had Winnie the Pooh, and I will say that that is just 90 minutes of pure unadulterated innocence. If you haven't
Oh,
seen it, it's so wonderful. I love it. And
it's amazing.
I love that Zoe Deschanel does the opening song. Such a great choice.
True.
But
Like
yeah,
I kind of forgot that Wreck-It Ralph was a Disney film for a while. Like when it came out, I didn't think it was a Disney film, so I didn't watch it when it came out. I didn't watch it until my senior year of high school. So
mm-hmm.
2016. When did it come
Yeah.
out?
Which movie again?
Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh, Wreck-It Ralph came out in 2012.
Oh, then hey, it took me a long time because I watched it on TV in 2016 because
Yeah.
I didn't think it was a Disney film, and I was like, oh, this is a Disney film. Let me watch it. I don't I wasn't paying a lot of attention, so I need to rewatch it again.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
yeah, and then you had Frozen, and then you had Big Hero 6,
Oh,
which is
Big Hero 6.
fantastic. And then you had Zootopia, which is wonderful, Moana, which is so much fun. You know what? One of the few things that I will say is that that was also the first time since 2002 where two Disney classics came out in one year.
That's true.
They had Zootopia and Moana, and I will admit that I was really glad that Zootopia won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature because it is the smartest and most brilliantly written film that Disney has given us in a long, long while. It's
Yeah,
wonderful. And also Jason Bateman and Jennifer Goodwin side by side, they are such a pair. I love those two together.
they are great together. It's such a good movie.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to know that Pixar has now officially stopped with all the sequels.
Mhm.
But don't get me wrong. I like Finding Dory. It's another one of those really good films that wasn't necessary, but I'm glad that it's here.
Mhm.
And I also do like Toy Story 4. Again, happy that it's here. Incredibles 2, forget it. That was the sequel we all wanted.
Yes, definitely. We all needed it.
Yeah, and Coco is a great film too, but I will say that I am and Inside Out is also good too. I personally was underwhelmed by it to a degree, but I do like it.
Hmm. I
But
thought the
yeah.
Inside Out was a good portrayal because I feel like it was one of the first times in Disney and Pixar where they portrayed mental health, which
Yeah,
was
that's true.
so nice to watch and to see. And it was just such a good, especially just for adult. I was just like, yeah, it was just so nice to see.
And it was also a very interesting cast, a whole bunch of a cast that you never would have imagined seeing in a Disney movie. And also, I like I said, I like Coco also. And just looking at my movies, I'm looking at my movies to see which ones I'm missing. I was never a big fan of the Cars movies, but I did like Cars 3.
When I was a kid, I was obsessed with cars. I had all of like the cars figurines, the whole
All the Hot
place.
Wheels.
I was basically Hot Wheels, but like cars themed. Hated the second movie, and then the third movie I thought was pretty good. So
Yeah, I'm really, and I'll tell you, I'm excited for next year because like I said, they've broken away from the sequels. We're getting Onward. I personally am very excited for Onward
me
because
too.
it's right up my alley as a fantasy fan, and I want to see a trailer for Soul. I don't know
Me
what
too.
it's about, but it
All we have
looks
is
like
that
it's
one
going to be
photo.
incredible. Yeah, I'm very curious as to what it's supposed to be. And outside of Frozen 2, I really don't know what we're in store for in terms of the next Disney classic, but I'm really hoping that they quit while they're ahead and really go back to some of the older canon classics to try to derive some of these ideas. Like if they could tap into some of the greatness that was given to us by movies like Emperor's New Groove, Atlantis, Lilo and Stitch, Treasure Planet, Meet the Robinsons, Bolt. If we could get some of those things harnessed, mixed in with some of the Disney Renaissance magic, then I really think that Disney is in for some very, very, very successful years because I personally want them to stop with the live action remakes. I'm sick of
Yeah.
them.
I want them like really badly. I want them to dabble into sci-fi again because I really like the science fiction that they gave us, and I think that if they do it again, because since they have acquired Star Wars and they have like all of their resources and they know that they have that fan base, I think they would really benefit from that.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. Yes, last week I was on Twitter, and this will be my closing statement because we're officially hitting the 2 hour mark. I'm watching the
Mhm.
clock right there.
Oh yeah.
Um, I will embrace an Atlantis live action film based on this picture that someone drew. Tom Holland as Milo
Oh my gosh, that'd be so
and
great.
Zendaya as Kita. I was like, sign me up. I will watch this because
I will watch that so
yeah,
hard.
they have such great chemistry in the Spider-Man films. To see those two as those two characters, I don't think there could be more perfect casting.
It would be so amazing and so good.
Tom Holland can totally channel Michael J. Fox. I can see it.
Definitely. Oh, it would be such a good film. I'm
Uh,
into it.
and that's my attitude because when it comes to Atlantis, as a Michael J. Fox fan, it's like I want more people to know that specific one and Treasure Planet. I want those two to be known a lot more and watched by a lot more people because out of all of these films that we talked about today, those are the two best in my opinion. They
Oh,
really
me
are in
too.
this group. All right. Well,
Awesome.
listen. Thanks. This was great.
This was a great live show, and I'm
Oh
excited.
yeah, I am excited to have you post it. I would love to post it on my channel as well to get the word out if it's okay with you. But
Yeah, of
thank you
course.
so much. Thank you so much for talking Disney with me for 2 hours. Even though this is on your channel, but I'm still thanking you. But
Awesome. Thank you for
I
coming onto my channel.
Yes, but I definitely want to talk to you in a couple of days because I definitely want you to join me for that DuckTales show that I have in the
Oh,
works.
definitely. I would love to be there for it.
All right. Well, once again, I really am so glad that we got this done. This was wonderful. So great to talk Disney with you.
Awesome. Great to talk Disney with you too. All right. Goodbye,
Take
guys.
care, everybody. Thanks for watching.